Welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast, the show where motherhood meets business and everything in between. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Bailey Gordon, and today's episode we have Jess Adams with Discover Yellow. If you haven't already, I highly recommend taking a listen to her podcast episode right before this. It's the Mom Boss Spotlight with Jess Adams of Discover Yellow. Make sure to check that out and listen to what Discover Yellow does, a little bit more about Jess, her background, and how she provides resources for female entrepreneurs. It's very unique. I think it's really cool. So welcome back to the show, Jess. I'd love for you to touch on how to help moms, business owners recharge and refuel to make them the best mom that they can be, the best business owner they can be. I'd love to know some actionable tips that people can take home today and incorporate into their business. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Bailey. Thank you for having me. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to the earlier podcast, I would encourage you to do that. But if we're meeting for the first time, hi, I'm Jessica, owner and founder of Discover Yellow. You're so right in terms of the coolness about the work that I get to do. I truly do see it as a get to. It is something that has been near and dear to my heart for so many years. While I've grown up in the world of personal, professional development, coaching, leadership development, I love being able to have a business that I get the opportunity to help women pause. Yeah. It is not something that we naturally do. I don't naturally just pause. It's so near and dear to my heart because I need it the most. Everything that I'm about to say, just know that I don't have it all figured out. I don't do it perfect. There is me in this community. Like, we're in this together. And I think the more that we can model this and do these types of activities, the more it becomes a little bit of a norm of, oh, you know what? I see her doing something a little different. Yeah. Or, you know what? I didn't see her say yes to those three things like she normally would have. One, let's check in. But two is actually I see her choosing a different yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so, because I think we live in a world that, whether you want to call it hustle culture or whatever you want to call it and give it a name, there is an element of go that is rewarded. There is an element of do that is rewarded. There is an element of be that is rewarded. And at the end of the day, if we are just operating in this fast forward momentum without ever taking a chance to refuel, refill, pause, whatever word you want to use, we are literally burning ourselves out and we are missing out. I truly believe we are missing out at all the amazing things right in front of us. And so that's why I've just become super passionate about it. I've got two young kids, 13 and 10, and I don't want to miss all the little moments in between. Now, am I going to be present for every single one? I'm not. I'm human. But why does it matter to rest? Why does it matter to refuel in these ways? Because we always talk like you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, what we talk about, check out so you can check in on purpose. All these things matter because if we are more refueled, we're likely more creative. We're making better decisions. As business owners, those two things alone matter. We're able to show up better in conversations. We're more present with our thoughts. We're more present with the people we're listening to. As moms, those things matter. As I'm saying these out loud, I'm thinking, yeah, I want all of that. Yeah. But it doesn't come without an intentional effort, I don't believe, to actually choose to pause. Because our calendars, likely, if you open your calendar right now, there are not words that are just written in there that say slow down, pause, take a moment for yourself. We might schedule some opportunities in to do that, but it doesn't have to be big and fancy. It just has to matter to you. So I'm going to ask you a question. And actually, I'm going to ask Bailey this question, but I'm going to ask everyone listening in. When you think of the word rest or refuel, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Ooh, I would say, honestly, removing things from my plate so that I can have time to rest and refuel. But my first instinct was seeing my friends.
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny, like, so that would be adding something, but I think it would be like making room for something that recharges me.
Sure.
And that would be seeing people, seeing my friends, doing something that is not related to my business or my family.
It's saying no to something so you have time for a better yes. Absolutely. And I love that because it also touches on the fact that not all rest is created equal. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes when people think of rest, they think of stopping. They think of a nap. They think of a slowdown. And I don't know about you, but I am the type of person who actually, I operate better in the go in some ways with maybe a little time pressure even. Yes. And that could be because I've conditioned myself that way. That could be because I'm naturally drawn to that. But the reality is sometimes a slowdown almost feels so foreign to me. So I use the word pause and I genuinely think of these pauses as so beneficial, but it doesn't mean that things have to stop. It doesn't mean that things have to be quiet. It doesn't mean that we have to lay down. It doesn't mean that we have to close our eyes and take a nap or just take a breath. It can be literally anything. There's usually 7 types of rest. So there's physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, creative, and sensory rest. I love reminding people, I love reminding myself that there's no one size fits all. It's not all created equal. Spa days, massages, facials, they're great, but for most of us, that's not going to be in our wheelhouse or our budget to be able to do that all the time. It makes it more special when we can't do it all the time, because then when we get to, it's great. But there are so many different ways to incorporate what might look like rest and refuel for each of us individually in our day that can look very different. And that's actually one of the things that many of our workshops and our retreats is building in a moment and time for women to really think about answering that question. So when I think of the word rest, what do I think about? When I think about a time when I feel refueled, what's happening? If I have an afternoon, if I have an hour to myself, what would I do with that hour? Those are gifts of moments. And what I choose to do with that can either refuel or it can be depleting. And so I think just those moments of recognizing it's important for a variety of reasons. It makes a big difference in how we show up, and it makes a big difference in how we interact with others, a big difference in how we run our business, what our relationships, the sustainability and what we're pouring into there. Because if we have run ourselves to a point of depletion, which is really easy to do.
I do it often.
And myself included, we wear a lot of hats, and those are really cool hats to wear. It's a gift, but it's not a gift that should come at the cost of us not creating this type of margin in our day.
That's not a gift anymore.
No. And oftentimes we end up showing up in ways that we are maybe not always as proud of.
Yeah.
We make decisions that could be a little bit knee-jerk, and we're not really thinking through. We say yes to a commitment, and we don't realize that one yes has 14 different elements to it. And now we've gotten ourselves into a place where, oh my gosh, I've committed, so now I'm going to follow through with this. And it has a domino effect on so many other things.
Not only on you and your mental health, but then that, like you said, a domino effect on your family, how you treat your kids, how you treat your spouse, how you treat yourself. I'm so glad to have you on and doing this. It's so selfish of me. I think I'm just doing this for me. This episode's just for me, everybody. But it's so important because I never knew how to rest. It was never shown to me. My mom, a single mom. I grew up with a single mom. She had me and my brother, and we were all doing sports and doing all the things. I never saw my mom rest. She worked multiple jobs. I don't know what that word is. When you just ask me what it is, I'm stumbling over my words because I'm like, wait, I actually don't know. I actually gave you an answer more for how I refuel and recharge. Yep. And that's different than what I think maybe my rest should, because I think that is what I've been conditioned to learn. Sure. So it's so interesting. Like, rest is different to everybody. Sometimes my rest, it's so different now that I'm a mom, right? But it is like getting away, taking a pause and things like that.
No, and I think that those are some of the myths even. When you think about these ways that we've either been conditioned, I would say I'm very similar. And part of that could also be generational. If you think about our parents and whether you grew up in a home where both your parents were working, one was working, whatever that might look like, there was more of a go mentality for sure. And I think to some degree, we've just adopted that. But I also think as women, we tend to carry the load for a lot of people.
Well, and I read somewhere about stress, like women are affected by stress differently than men. And so then obviously moms are going to be affected differently than dads. Right? I don't know about you, but I see that. It's very clear.
Correct.
This conversation is so needed for many moms out there. So I'm really excited to see what you teach us.
Well, and again, I'm teaching myself along the way. You say you selfishly, you had me on to talk about this. I selfishly created a company to actually remind myself the importance of this. And I'll be very honest and just sharing a very real example for me is I started recognizing at a later part before I transitioned into having my own business, but I started recognizing that the people I love the most were getting the worst of me. And I can get emotional when I talk about that because that isn't what I wanted.
I feel that too.
It's so tricky. And that doesn't mean we're always going to show up, have the most patience in the world. No, we're human. But it does mean that if I was really honest with myself, I know very clearly why that was happening.
I am just learning that because I feel like sometimes, my kids, they don't get the best version of me because I am so overwhelmed with X, Y, and Z, and I'm not letting myself get that recharge.
Right.
So then my 5-year-olds don't understand why their mom isn't happy or why she snaps easily or why she's crying in the kitchen because she's just had enough.
Yes.
Or why she gets easily overstimulated.
Right.
And I think that connection is not always recognized. I don't think it's always, oh, I am snapping at my kids or my spouse because I am overwhelmed and I need to rest. That's not our first instinct, right? Like rest.
Yeah.
What? Who's out here? No one's out here saying this. We need you to preach it, sister.
I think absolutely I resonate with so much of what you're saying. When I think back to one of the reasons why rest and refuel is so important, you just talked about using the example of the things that our kids observe. We are role modeling a lot of things for them, whether we like it or not. We are human. So I think it is great when our kids get to see a real side of us and we have the opportunity for recovery in that moment, or we teach them, you know what, to be honest, I'm really sorry that happened, but I am really tired right now. And that's not an excuse. It's just recognition. So could we do something together? Kids need it too. I look at my kids, even at the ages they're at now, and between a full day of school, sports activities that they love doing and we want to support and encourage them in, they're long days. They are long days. I have one child who's really social and fuels in that way, and I have one who is not as much and needs more recharge time at home. That's important for us to know because when it comes weekend time, or my husband, he travels a fair amount, whether it be overnight travel or entertainment in the evenings. On Fridays, there are times where I've been working home a lot that week and I'm ready to go do something. He has not. And all he wants to do is be home. Yeah. And so it's just interesting to find these different dynamics in our family units, but all of it comes down to we are all craving a little bit of that refuel. And we don't have to wait for Friday to do it. We don't have to wait for a specific time for it to be invited or to fall on our calendar. I think that's probably one of the, when I think about these myths, is that it's not all created equal. It's not just going to show up on our calendar. We have to be intentional to create the opportunity for it. And we have to be intentional to figure out what it looks like for us, because no 2 days are usually going to be the same. Moment to moment, it might change. And so knowing that we can tap into these different types of rest, hey, right now, I might need some creative rest. There are times where I'm like, who wants to color? Yeah. Or if you have some other way that you like to use your hands, or get out and do something fun with friends that feels a little more creative, or maybe it's something around social. I tend to be a pretty social person too, so I can say yes to more invitations that maybe are what are healthy for me sometimes. And actually, a rest might be, doesn't mean I can't say yes, it's just which ones am I being selective about.
Which one's a hell yes?
Yeah, 100%. I think there are those elements of yes. Does your body need some refuel and recharge by way of sleep or slowing down in those ways? Our body will usually tell us that. We need to tune in and listen. But there are a lot of other ways to incorporate different pieces of rest. For me, I would use the examples of practically what that can look like in your everydays, because people are like, what does that really look like? I would say it can look like a lot of different things, but I think behind the rest piece is checking on our expectations. So are we setting up realistic expectations for our day, or maybe our week or our month, whatever your time frame might look like? I find myself, if I have a little bit of a free afternoon or I'm going to run some errands, when I look at what I actually put on my list, if I'm honest, it's never realistic. It just isn't. I believe I'm going to get 4 different places, return 3 things, and drive from Bonnie Lake to Tacoma and be back for school pickup in 2 hours. It's not realistic, but it lands on my list. And so I take a look at that and I'm like, okay, well, something's got to give, right? Or that I'm going to attend 3 evening activities in a week. There was a time in my life where that was a little easier. Right now, it's just not. And so taking a look at expectations, or even with my kids as they're getting a little older, there's more responsibilities we can give to them and delegate and teach them what it looks like to be a member of the family. Those are all great. But if I haven't communicated those in a way, we do a workshop at retreats around expectations, which is an expectation can only be that if it's been communicated and mutually agreed. Otherwise, it's just a hope. And I, myself, can live in a very hopeful place a lot with my husband, with my kids, with friends. If we haven't communicated and we have an agreement on something, we need to check in on that. It's an opportunity. And I believe that when we're clear on what can really be realistic, more opportunities for rest can present themselves. So that's definitely an opportunity. Check in with your expectations, check in on commitments. We talked a little bit already about the idea of what am I really committing to? Is there something that needs to come off my plate in this season I'm in? And if it can, what could that look like? A yes is easy. All the things that lead to actually fulfilling that yes takes time. And so I think we have to, absolutely. So I think we have to think about, is there somewhere right now where I could hit pause? Somewhere where I could actually take something that maybe would normally be a yes, and right now it just needs to be a no for me. It needs to be a not right now. I'm not super comfortable with the word no, so I actually will say not right now. It means the same thing to me, but it sounds better.
Yeah.
So find your comfort level. I would say also thinking about how you can clear the clutter, whether that be physical, things that are around you, and also our mental clutter. There is a time and a place for maybe some creative brainstorming. There's a time and a place for, I'm a little worried about that, but really checking in and saying, is there something that's within my control? What can I do right now? If it's really out of my control, what can I do with that? Because if we don't have a lot of energy and we are using the energy we do have to be stressed or worried about things out of our control, it's almost like we're just choosing to stand there and pour the pitcher out, which we would tell our kids not to do. And so I think really thinking about how can I free up some energy? Are there things right now that are feeling a little depleting and are part of them, even how we talk to ourselves? I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think as a business owner and especially as a mom, we can be really critical of ourselves. More than we would be of other people. Very much so.
Yes.
You're nodding your head.
I say this all the time because I have friends who are very critical of themselves. And I will say, would you say that to your friend?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel that very deeply. I try to be better about it because specifically, for example, body image. That's a big one where it's okay. I try to be very good to myself because I never want my kids to talk about themselves like that. And I would never say that about a friend.
Sure.
Right. And so I try to mirror that in my business life, but it is really hard to do. It is so difficult. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed or stressed, or like you're not good enough, you're not cut out for this. So tell me more about it.
Well, and I think especially in times when you are feeling more depleted, it is a prime opportunity for a lot of those negative things. They do. So I would just say when you think about checking in with yourself in those ways of, is there something that's getting more of my energy right now? And if the answer to that is yes, am I aware of it? And if self-talk or negative chatter, inner critic, we all have them. Yeah. We all have an inner critic. Yeah. We can befriend it, and sometimes it helps us. It can slow us down a little bit. It can give us room to pause, but it also can keep us stuck, and it also can really drain a lot of energy. If I looked at my little energy bucket, and this is what I have to be able to pour out, I don't actually want to be giving that energy to other things that are just not serving me well.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's funny you say that about the energy. I'm going to just tell a very quick story because I think you'd find it very interesting. I had tomato plants last summer and they were just going crazy in the backyard. But I had all green tomatoes, not a single red tomato. And I was like, why is this happening? This is so crazy. And I would tell people about it. I'd be like, I have so many tomatoes, but they're all green. None of them are able to turn red. I don't know what's going on. And my mom sent me this reel on Instagram, and it's this lady talking about, if you have a bunch of green tomatoes, here's what you do. You take your shears, find the last tomato on the vine, you cut right above that tomato. You cut off the offshoot.
Okay.
And she was saying the reason your tomatoes are not turning red is because they are using all their energy to grow these other offshoots. So now you have all these green tomatoes and no ripe red tomatoes because the energy is not going to making those riper and ready to go. They're not fulfilling their destiny of being a red ripe tomato because the plant is so busy trying to create these new offshoots and new tomatoes. And I remember sitting there and I was just having I don't even know why I was pruning the tomatoes. There was no reason for me to be doing that. But I'm just out there with like kitchen shears.
Sure.
I'm hacking this plant up and I'm crying because I'm like, oh my gosh, like my tomatoes are green. They're not turning red because I'm trying to do too many things. I'm not recovering. I'm not resting. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not doing the basic things like drinking water, feeding myself breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
Not even a healthy one. I'm not even feeding myself. I'm not even taking the chance to refuel literally.
Right.
And so it's just funny, like this freaking tomato plant taught me a lesson that I changed my life.
Yeah.
Right after that, I started taking vitamins and supplements and taking my electrolytes and making sure that I was trying to move as much as I could and all these things.
Yes.
So funny what a random tomato plant will
so
teach you.
Good.
But when you're telling me this story about all your energy going elsewhere, I couldn't help but have to tell you
I love it. I feel like we probably all have our tomato plant, right?
Yeah.
It might not be a tomato plant, but something where you're recognizing, like you're putting all this effort, you're seeing a little bit, right? Yeah. And then it's growing. It's growing.
Yeah.
But
so it's like
it's not right, but
yes,
absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Yes, it falls right in line with the energy piece and just where we're giving it. So I think the other thing I would say is asking for help. Yeah. So we talked to check your expectations. Think about your commitments. What are you saying yes to? Is there somewhere that you could pause, even in the short term? Because the other thing is seasons, they come and go. I have times, even in summer, where I will look at things and say, what do I need to pause just for summer? Because if I keep run rate on these things, I almost don't have time for summer, if that makes sense. Yeah. We're not always going to be able to pick every little thing that we want to do in our day, but I think we have more availability for those choices than we give ourselves credit for. Yeah. So the other thing is asking for help. I am learning to be better and to see the beauty in asking for help. We've had a couple scenarios just recently where our kids are involved in different sports, and our daughter is actually dancing at a new studio this year, and it's about a 40-minute each way commute. And we wanted to support her in this, but we knew it meant a big shift for our family. It's almost a year-long commitment, this dance.
It is.
It's wonderful, but it is, yes. Dance. So you sign up, and it's not 6 weeks or even 3 months. And so the thought was, well, yes, we want to support you in this, but we need to figure out, what does this really look like? The easy, right in front of us, was to ask for help with carpool. Yeah. And ended up finding a mom who I said, hey, I'm going to need some help. Could you help me? She was like, absolutely, I need some help. And we needed opposite time of the day help, and it worked out perfect. You just start to see those elements of somebody else likely needing some help too. I am the first one to raise my hand and offer help to someone. Yeah. It's just hard sometimes to ask, but it really does free up energy. And sometimes you're giving someone an opportunity to do something they're really good at and that they would want to do too, which I think is a cool way to look at it. Thinking about all of those elements, they create these different opportunities for you to maybe have a little freed up energy, more time throughout the day. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time. One of the things I talk about too in like your everyday is finding periods of rest. Do you have time for transitions? Maybe you're finishing up work and you're going to pick your kids up. Or you picked one child up, but it's time to have a little transition before you go pick the other up. Or it's morning and no one's up yet. Or it's night and everyone's in bed. But what are those different times in your day where you have some transitions that you can create an opportunity for a little bit of rest? I love this reframe. I read this quote that I use literally almost in every workshop when we're talking about rest, which reframes the question. Typically, we might say, have I worked hard enough to earn rest? And it reframes, have I rested enough to do my most loving and meaningful work? And I think as a mom especially, that one has always hit for me, because when I think about getting the opportunity to be a mom, it's such a privilege. Yeah. It is such a gift, right? Some days it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Most days it's hard. But that's the beauty of it. And we're constantly learning from these tiny little humans, and they're constantly teaching us. And it's just this amazing gift. I really do see that. But when I think about that type of quote, am I rested enough to do my most loving and meaningful? Like, they are my most loving and meaningful work. This business, my friendships, all these things that we have the opportunity to pour into. And it's great to do that. But we also equally need to say, I am my most loving and meaningful work. And that's not selfish.
That's good.
So that's me saying that. It's like, Mirror Jessica, say that to yourself, because it's easy to tell ourselves the other reframe of that and say, oh, have I done enough? Did I get enough of this done?
So this rest?
Exactly. I would encourage anyone listening to just consider, are there points in your day where you check in on your expectations? You think about the things that you've committed to just a little bit more before you say yes. Or maybe it's a yes, but it's a yes with some parameters. Again, clear expectations. Thinking about your transition times. Thinking about where you might be exhausting energy in ways that is just not fueling. It's not helping to feed you. And then of course there's the physical, taking care of your body, making sure you're eating well, all of those different ways that you can take care of yourself. But I think those things seem to get more of the mainstream attention. They seem to be the quick things that we go to. And while they might have those maybe quicker fixes, and they do have real benefit.
Immediate.
Absolutely.
Immediate, like sleeping,
correct.
Rest. Like that's an obvious one. But like you're saying, things like creative rest, sensory rest, I would have never known what that was. Like,
same for me until I started doing more of this. Even with the sensory, I read this thing once and someone was talking about putting on do not disturb time. And I was thinking, gosh, what does that look like? What a permission for ourselves to think about, you know what? I need 5 minutes of do not disturb time. I'm giving myself a timeout. And then asking yourself, if I'm giving myself 5 minutes or 10 or 15, whatever you can allot, how am I going to use it?
I love it.
And don't be surprised when you ask that, your body will tell you, maybe it's like you've been sitting, you just need to move around and stretch a little bit. Those things added up over the day can be really refueling.
Yeah, it's just little deposits into the bank.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
your withdrawal comes from having patience at bedtime.
Right.
Being present with your kids when you want to be present because you were able to get that recharge and refuel.
Exactly.
I think a lot of times, and I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody, but maybe I am, a lot of times I feel very torn between wanting a little bit of time while they're watching a movie to like work on my business.
Sure.
But it's not like actual good time. I might be able to respond to 2 or 3 emails. Or should I spend that time with my kids and give myself permission to totally detach from my business, or like be in and out of my business where I'm not fully present in either one. Present in my business and present with my kids.
Yeah.
And both of them feel the disadvantages of that.
Right.
So I think that this is such a good way to reframe and refuel and relook at that and make sure that we are doing our most meaningful work.
Right.
I don't know if you are already planning to do this, but I would love for you to talk about the different kinds of
Oh,
rest.
sure. Absolutely.
And talk about examples, listing them. 1, physical rest. 2, mental rest, and just giving us a little breakdown of each one. Doesn't have to be super long, but I love examples, what people could do in those times to take those types of rests.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a great question. And I love when we get the opportunity to do this collectively with other women too, because it's so good to add to this list. What I'm about to share are literally things that any one of us could probably just do a little search and they'll come up. But you start to make this your own and you realize, oh my gosh, that's actually pretty meaningful to me. So physical rest goes without saying. We're talking about sleep, maybe a short nap or a bit of a pause in that way. We're talking about stretching. And that doesn't have to be I'm going to a yoga class. That can literally be stretching, doing a neck stretch, giving your wrists a little love when you've been sitting at your desk or in the car, just a little trunk type stretching. Certainly there's things like massage or other breathing techniques that can all fit there. But mental rest, I love this. This is the opportunity for those little brain breaks. I was schooling my kids at home during COVID. And the pandemic. My son was starting kindergarten. My daughter was in 2nd grade. This was before I started Discover Yellow.
Right.
And so it was an interesting time to say the least. The kids on Zoom did brain breaks a couple times a day. They needed that little creative. They needed that little movement. They needed a little fun and silly. So do we.
Yeah.
So do we. So just an example, look, one of my brain breaks is walking to get the mail. I know that sounds silly and it's not every day, but there are times where if I feel overstimulated, I'm not able to move on, where I'm just stuck like reading the same email or something. Let's go get the mail. Perfect. Yeah. Walk outside, walk down to the end of your street, get up and just move from your space. That little bit of a brain break, you come back more energized. We like to think sometimes, I think we tell ourselves the narrative that when we stop being productive, we're going to stop being productive. And there's a lot of research that suggests when you are not feeling productive, step away and you will come back.
Because you clear up that space to, like, now any extra noise is cleared out because you've walked away from it.
Right.
And now you might be able to think more creatively.
Right.
I love that. And I think that's such a good point. Get up and move. Go walk away. I think so often, and I could just be speaking for myself here, but I think so often after we get done doing an email or something, we pick up our phone and look at our Instagram or our Facebook or our social media or TikTok, and we're scrolling and we think that's a break. We think, okay, now I'm just vegging out or doom scrolling or whatever, and we think that's a break, and it's not.
Right, absolutely.
And it's like actually giving you too much input, and now you're probably not going to be productive.
Right.
So I think that I'm totally going to start implementing that. And I'm going to start walking away because I am guilty of that. I'll put my phone over to the side. I'm like so proud of myself. It's face down, or maybe it's on Do Not Disturb. And I'm proud of myself. And then I get to a point where I'm like stuck, or like I need a creative whatever, and I'll go pick up my phone. Yeah. And I don't get that creative. No. I feel less than, actually. I feel worse. Right. And I'm like, why do I feel so bad? Why do I feel like I'm not doing enough?
Yeah, like having that quick cookie. It doesn't always like in the quick, short, it's that quick satisfaction. And I don't know all the neuroscience behind it, but I know the cookie tastes good in the quick.
The dopamine hit.
So mental has all those elements. Maybe you're a journaler. Do you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night or can't go to bed? Just having that space to get things out, that brain dump. I even read something about a worry list. Just get it out, write it down. Don't feel like you have to just hold on to that.
I have my notes app. I'll write down all the things I just thought of in the last 15 minutes while I laid there like paralyzed that I couldn't fall asleep.
Yes, right.
Like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the month, I need to do this, or I turn this paperwork.
So,
I love the idea of having a list where you can just write everything down, get it out, before you go to bed and relax.
Absolutely. So I think those things can happen throughout. Sensory rest, alluded to that already, of taking that opportunity to put technology, phone or some kind of device, or whether it's something with TV, are you naturally drawn? Maybe it's an opportunity to not let that be your default. It's just a question, right? I don't have the answer. You don't have the answer. We can think about this for ourselves. But for everyone listening, I would say use these as prompts to say, what behaviors is this driving? How am I feeling after this? Try something out. Don't be afraid. Emotional rest is really key. And I think community, when I think about the Mom Boss community, the emotional rest, the social rest that can come. I know we think of social rest often as we're not going to do anything social. That's not what it means at all. And the emotional rest, same, is you want to be able to have some clear boundaries, but you also maybe need a safe place to just be. Be feeling what you're feeling. Doesn't mean you have to stay there, but have those communities, have that friend you can pick up the phone, that family member you can talk to. And then the social rest, the same, is thinking about, do I need to take a little step back from maybe a draining relationship or an overcommitment that's just not fueling in those ways? Or do I need to engage a little bit? Have I been a little too isolated? It's a good question to ask. And I think we are all going to ebb and flow. We're not always going to be the same season to season.
I feel that very much as an extrovert. I feel depleted when I have not seen people. Like when I have just been around my kids for X amount of days. I love them. But talking to 5-year-olds all day, every day, okay, I need some more stimulating conversation. I need to not talk about poop or something.
Yes, exactly.
I love that reframe of that. Social rest doesn't mean stepping back. That could mean stepping in. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, that's how I recharge. Right. And so it's nice to hear that is okay.
Absolutely.
It's like give yourself permission.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah. I think if you're gaining a sense of energy from being in different social settings or communities, or even thinking about working from home, maybe you're not even engaging in the social activity that other people are at the coffee shop, but you get some energy by just being in a different environment. There is something to be said. While some people are like, you know what, if you put me in a coffee shop, I'm getting zero work done because I'm making 14 new friends and I'm not working.
Yes, that is also me.
And I can do both of those myself. So take the right work in the environment that works for you.
Either edit for 12 hours at the coffee shop, or I will leave with 12 friends. You just never know.
Yeah. And so then the creative piece is obviously thinking about those things that give you inspiration, right? You might be consuming, maybe it's reading for you, maybe it's a magazine, maybe it's actually something with your hands. Do you knit? Do you crochet? Do you paint? Do you play music? Do you want to just listen to music? Do you want to get out in nature and be a little bit more grounded? I think there's a variety of different things that can fall into that category. Those things can also be very fueling. And the last one is spiritual. So depending on whatever your walk of faith is or whatever you can connect to in that, there are so many elements of ways to rest in that. Find ways to incorporate that into your day. Your community circles maybe. And again, that's going to look different for everyone. I'm a person who loves options. When I started thinking about rest, and then I started incorporating different things into workshops, and I had come across this list. And actually the first time I saw it had 5. And I thought, that's interesting. And the next time I saw it had 7, and I was like, great, more options. And so I say that, all joking aside, I am a person who likes options. I know not everyone is. Someone's tell me the plan, what should I do? And I would say the unfortunate piece of it is there is no one size fits all. Every time you're in a place where you need to tap into a little refuel. If you think about your phone battery dying, we plug our phones in, we recharge, we fill our bodies with the right fuel, and we hopefully should take in that same mentality when we think about recharging and resting ourselves. So I think options are great. I would tell people, like, if you're listening and thinking, this is a lot, pick one thing. Maybe there's something in your day right now where you recognize a transition and you're like, oh, I could try a little something there. Or you know that after you finish said activity in your business, you feel really drained, but it's something you have to do. Great opportunity for some refuel. You know that you've got for me, I'll use this example because I use it often. I have a 2-minute drive from my house to pick my son up at school. It's great. It's close. But sometimes it's a little too close. If I'm finishing my day work-wise and I'm just rushing to get him, which happens often, if I rush in without having any little bit of transition time, I show up so different, and not always in ways that are great, not always in ways that are able to be present for him. I kind of engage in the yes, absolutely. Yeah. So what I've found is when I get in my car, or if I'm walking to pick him up, I know I have that time. So what do I want to do? Am I rolling the windows down? Do they stay up? Do I turn the music on? Do I have silence? Do I need a quick chat with someone? I've got 2 minutes. Hey, I just wanted to say hi, like a quick check-in. Yeah. It can look very different from day to day, and I don't do it every single day, but I have found that to be a natural transition time for me that does exist, and I can can use it for beneficial reasons.
Yeah.
So
I love that awareness too, knowing that if you don't get that time, that you do show up differently. I think that is a huge takeaway for the people listening. Honestly, your first step, you mentioned it, is paying attention.
Yeah.
And it is recognizing where it's difficult. I think a lot of people might resonate with bath time, bedtime times. Like, what is there that you can do? One of the things I'm trying to do is put my phone on the charger.
Yep.
During those times, like 5 to 7, my phone has to be away. It's very difficult. I have not been doing a good job of it, but I realize on the nights that I do put it away, I am a better, more present mom.
Right.
For me, that's how it works best. When I am on my phone and my kids are trying to talk to me, I get so overstimulated that it leads to a snap.
Sure.
And I'm trying to just write this one email. Can you just go downstairs with your brother?
Yeah.
And then that's disconnection. Not only does that create a disconnect for them, but then a disconnect for me, and then I feel bad, and then there's all those things. You don't ever mean for it to happen.
Right.
But these little 5-inch blocks that we carry around in our back pockets that we're drawn to and addicted to, put them away and find that meaningful connection.
Yeah. And it is interesting with that example. I will say that as your children get older, and they start approaching ages where they may get their own phone, it reminds me very much of the role modeling piece. What behaviors do we want to role model in ways that are healthy for us, and we know we're going to be correcting them on?
Yeah.
We're going to want their attention.
Yeah.
There's this one example I heard one time around being engaged in your daily life. Think about it like you're at a movie theater. If you go to watch a movie at the theater, you usually have your phone away, got your popcorn or some kind of snack in hand, and you are focused. Yeah. There might be some things going around that you can get a little distracted, but you came to watch the movie. Or the difference of watching a movie at home. I don't know about you, but I still have my phone nearby. I might even fold a little laundry while we're watching a movie. I might take a call during it. And if I think about the way that I observed and interacted with those two scenarios, I didn't really watch the movie. I'm not taking the same takeaways. It wasn't the same awareness and engagement. And again, I'm painting this picture of some exactly. So, but it's bringing the awareness to the things of, am I willing to miss what's right in front of me for other things that right now just don't need my attention? We have that verse in our head that we'll just knock one more thing out. We'll just do this real quick right now. And whether it be with our kids, whether it be with our spouse, whether it be from a business standpoint, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Same thing. We could be working on a new product release or something we're really excited, and then our phone pings and we can almost instantly be drawn to that. And maybe we're now problem solving something on that end.
Yep. And now it's just taken you completely out of the role that you were in.
Yes, exactly.
I've started paying a lot of attention to this. And I don't know if you talk about this in other ways, but the connection between like dopamine, ADHD, like the dopamine levels and needing that quick hit, that quick fix. And you don't get that recharge. Right. And a lot of people with ADHD tend to overexert themselves, tend to get really depressed, tend to find a lot of anxiety in their lives. Do you ever work at all closely with ADHD, rest, or dopamine, or any of those things? Or
not professionally. I would say personally, my son, we've had him tested and it's come back inconclusive. He's 10 and it's been for the last couple of years of he could be 8. He could be a boy. He could, so many different scenarios. We've just stayed with the accommodations and other things that help him have choices, especially in his school day, to have the best environment that works for him. The school has been very supportive, which has been great. As they get older, where the natural draw is something technology related. And I'm not going to lie, there are times where I'm getting things done, so the technology is easy. It's easy to say, yeah, just go watch a movie right now. But what kids don't always understand is, if mom says yes one time, then why does she say no the next time? And then it starts to create that argument cycle, all of that. So I had read an article once, especially when kids are in a time of power struggle or they're just not getting their way. And there can be a natural tendency to want to check out, right? But the check out is usually with some sort of a technology. So it was like, you have to have 2 ways to check out without technology. I think the same could be true around refuel. 2 ways to refuel, whether it's get fresh air, get your feet on the ground, move in a certain way that is helpful to you, get creative with your hands, go have a conversation with someone, turn on a song you really like, whatever it is. Find those opportunities to have a first or a second go before it's the technology. What I love about it is I think it's all worth exploring. I think we all have elements of whatever continuum we fall on, whether it be something that overstimulates us in one environment or another, or stresses us out. Some people can get really stressed with too much routine, some people too little. So I think it's staying, or both. But having those opportunities to have the check-in, to pay attention to what is causing the stress.
I love it. This is such an awesome conversation. I want to close things up with Just kind of curious what somebody's next
Sure.
step would be to take action after
Yeah.
they listen to this episode.
I immediately want to say come to a workshop.
Talk about your workshops.
But no,
I mean,
but I would say what we would cover if we were doing this in a workshop is usually we create a little bit of almost like a T-chart table, and we talk through things that are kind of stressors, relaxers, and then we go through these ideals. Because a lot of times what I find myself and others included when we're unpacking this is we create a lot of things in our routine that don't serve us well. And we keep them in a routine because it's our routine.
Yeah.
And that could be everything from a morning routine with your kids. My son had a period of time where he was really afraid to go back upstairs by himself. And so he would always forget his socks. And so it would be this big, we have to go back upstairs for the socks. And as soon as we go back upstairs, things are derailed. And now we have to get back downstairs. I decided, why don't we have a sock bin downstairs? This is rocket science.
Yeah.
And it only took a year to even conceptually come up with this idea that we should have socks downstairs. Long story short, we put this bin down there. It became enabling for him. He didn't feel uncomfortable that he always had to say he was scared to go upstairs. It created a better routine that worked for us versus tasks that just don't need to be there. There are things we do in the morning that, if we're honest, if they're not serving a morning routine, we should ask ourselves, do they have to be done in the morning? Maybe they don't. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. If we were at a workshop, we would consume all this. We've talked about different types of rest, why it matters, and then we unpack it a little bit. We say, okay, what does this mean to me? At what point in my day do I find that I'm like feeling like I could use a little refresh, refuel? Are there times in my day that there are some transitions that I could incorporate something? What would that look like? Are there times in my day my family might need a little bit of something? How could we do that as a group? There's definitely power in numbers of keeping things a little bit more sticky. My encouragement would be to try. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't think that it has to be super fancy and over the top. Something simple could work really well. Try it. Give it more than one time. Don't just dismiss it and say, oh gosh, that didn't work well for me. Give it a try again. Find yourself in a place where you say, okay, that was actually really great. Make a list if you like a list. Sometimes I have people create a little jar or a cup and fill your cup. There are things in and throughout your day that you could simply just pull a paper out. If that's in your wheelhouse right now, is, you know what, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
There are also going to be some things that you're already doing, and you just need to give yourself credit for it. And that is huge. That's something to celebrate, of saying, you know what, I've never looked through that lens before. I get the mail all the time. Normally in our house, my husband's getting the mail. But if it's this time where I'm like, I'm going to walk down, I can easily do that. It's intentional. And all I'm choosing to do is give it credit for what it is. Yeah. And I call it this rest.
It feels different. It's like a little treat.
Think about those things that you're already doing. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm listening to this. And you're like, I've never rested a day in my life. That is not true at all.
You're already incorporating
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. I read something one time that said, pay attention to the tension. It's trying to tell you something. So in those moments when you're feeling that tension, pay attention. Use that as an opportunity to check in. Rest is not the answer to everything. It may be one of those things where you try something out and you realize that made a big difference. A morning routine for you that maybe you're not getting up before your kid and you want to try that out. Doesn't have to be a lot before. Maybe it's 5 minutes before. And it matters
just
to
have
you.
That transition from
I started doing that a while ago. Now, granted, part of that was my working schedule too, but I will get up a bit earlier to have a chunk of my time in the morning to do my devotional, have a little time, talk with my husband. It's bolstering that, here we go, we're ready for the day, and now you can take this out. So it's just...
That. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate you. I want you to talk a little bit about, just give us a brief overview of your workshops, what you have coming up, what you offer, and how people can find you.
Perfect. Absolutely. We're doing our spring walking workshop series again. It's been 2 years since we've done this. Last year, I tried different things in the springtime, and this year I was really feeling like we've got to bring these back. And so the walking workshops is a series of 4 workshops, Fridays from noon to 1. So I use it as like, it's an opportunity for a lunchtime break, but they are all focused around self-development related topics. So we're going to get into self-talk, mindset, talk about gratitude, talk about expectations. And really the opportunity, I think, is for women to come to those workshops, regardless of what season of life you're in. If there's somewhere where you might feel a little stuck, if there's an opportunity where you could use some accountability, if you're looking for community, all of those things can exist. The beauty of being outside is to bring that creativity. Our other workshops are fantastic too, but these walking workshops, it's amazing in 1 hour. We have a little time for learning, personal reflection, and then we get up and move. If you want the time to partner up with someone and debrief, you can. If you want to be solo and just be with your thoughts, it's an opportunity for that too. But I'm super excited. So those are going to kick off April 18th. And they are in Bonnie Lake. So it's just an opportunity to use the trails and other cool parts of that neighborhood. That'll be kicking off April 18th and run for 4 sessions. All the information you can, well, actually it'll be through Instagram because I actually haven't even put that on the website. I should do that. Add that to the list. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, we have our Mother's Day workshop coming up in May. This is one I do every year. It's free, it's virtual. So if you haven't had a chance to join us for a workshop, this is a great opportunity to invite your friends, and they can literally join from wherever. And we usually take 30, 45 minutes to all get on Zoom and celebrate the fact that we get to nurture other humans and pour into the lives of others. Let's not forget to pour into ourselves as well. And then a couple retreats being planned for fall time frame, which I'm excited about. So they're both on the website, but those will be starting to get circulated a bit more very soon. And then we have the Mom Boss retreat, which is going to be early part of May. And I'll be there as a participant because I'm really excited for that, but also to help facilitate a couple workshops too.
I'm really excited about
that.
Yeah,
me too.
Okay, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So website is discoveryellow.com. And then you can also find us on Instagram at discover.yellow, which is where we have all of our up and coming events, other topic, motivational related things that are coming out to get us all thinking, and our Take Fives, which is an opportunity for a midweek reflection. So I'd love to have you join us in that community as well.
We definitely need the Take Fives to live somewhere. Like, I need to bring these over into the Mom Boss group. You need to tag me and then I'll share.
Yes, I would love to do that.
It'd be nice to
tag team on that. I love that. And it'd be great. Really, the whole concept of that is I think it has the potential certainly to be personally impactful, but it has the ability to bring communities together even more when people are sitting and checking in the same question, and then you can start talking about it. So
totally.
that's the power of it.
They could tag you in it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Jess. We could talk for hours. This is why I think you need your own podcast. I'm just going to be a very big proponent of that in the next season of life.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you guys were able to take away some incredible ways that you can rest, refuel, and recharge to make yourself a better boss, a better mom, and a better person in general. So take those, really implement them in your daily life. You can implement them today. And I just really hope that this was helpful for you. I cannot wait for you guys to tune into the next episode. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.